Good afternoon. My name is Jenn Anim with the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality, the Office of Policy. I'm going to be referring to Office of Pharmaceutical Quality as OPQ throughout my presentation. And I'm sorry, I'm a little congested. I'm getting over a cold, so please pardon me if I snip here and there. The outline of my presentation this afternoon would be the changes in GDUFA III, the types of OPQ controlled correspondence, the different OPQ disciplines that handle controlled correspondence, the best practices for controlled correspondence, and frequently asked questions for OPQ controlled correspondence. Our learning objectives this afternoon would be to outline the changes in GDUFA III as it pertains to Office of Pharmaceutical Quality control correspondences, to describe the types of quality-related control correspondences reviewed by OPQ, and provide helpful information for submitting quality-related controlled correspondence. Controlled correspondence, by definition, is a correspondence from a generic sponsor, generic manufacturer, or sponsor related to generic drug development, requesting information regarding chemistry, manufacturing, and controls, as well as quality microbiology for generic drugs. With that, we have two levels of controlled correspondences, level 1 and level 2. Level 1 controlled correspondences are controlled correspondences received prior to an ANDA submission, after a PSG teleconference, after issuance of a complete response letter or tentative approval, after an ANDA approval, and after a control correspondence concerning post-approval submission requirements. Then you move on to level 2, which are correspondences related to clinical content, covered product authorization, alternative bioequivalence approaches, and input from another office or center. So with us in OPQ, the only level 2 kind of control correspondences that we have would be control correspondence that we do respond to would be control correspondences that need an input from another office or center. The time frames for response for controlled correspondences based on our two levels. Level 1 controlled correspondences would be responded within 60 days. Level 2 controlled correspondences will be responded within 120 days, which is most of those would be ones that we would need a consult from another office or center. And then for clarification of ambiguities, we'll respond within 21 days. So what is clarification of ambiguities? According to our commitment letter, ambiguity in a controlled correspondence means a controlled correspondence response or critical portion of it that merits clarification. Requests to clarify ambiguities in FDA's controlled correspondence should be submitted within 7 days of the response. No new questions or rephrasing of questions should be added to the clarification of ambiguities request, and no new information should be added either. What is different in GDUFA III pertaining to OPQ controlled correspondences? Under GDUFA III, controlled correspondence seeking regulatory and/or scientific advice after the following can be submitted as a controlled correspondence: after issuance of a complete response letter, tentative approval, and after an ANDA approval. Previously in GDUFA II, these were considered general correspondences. And just to note, response for clarification of ambiguities will be responded within 21 days of request, as opposed to 14 days in GDUFA II. And also, another thing to note is to submit the clarification of ambiguities within 7 days of the response from the FDA. OPQ Sub-disciplines responding to control correspondences. Within OPQ, there are different offices that respond to control correspondences based on the topic and the subject matter of the controlled correspondence. Office of Product Quality Assessment 1 and 2 respond to questions pertaining to drug products. Examples of those are formulation, specifications, stability testing, container closure, dissolution, in vivo and in vitro and in vivo correlation. Office of Products Quality Assessment 3 respond to control correspondences related to drug substance questions. Examples of those, some examples of those would be starting material, polymorphs, new API source, and API sameness. The Office of Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Assessment would answer questions pertaining to manufacturing questions. Example is batch size, manufacturing process, sterile manufacture, bacterial endotoxin specifications. Some of the topics that we received in 2023, and this is a breakdown of it in the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality. As you can tell, about 3/4 of our control correspondences pertain to drug products, of which we received 72%. And then next comes post-approval, which is about 13, and 9% for manufacturing and drug substance, as you can see. Now, the top 10 quality control correspondence subjects or subtopics in 2023, as it's broken down. And number 1 is bracketing and matrixing, stability data, packaging, batch size, container closure, microbiology, impurity for drug products, in-use testing, orientation, and then the 10th one would be dissolution. Some submission best practices for controlled correspondences submitted to OPQ. For pre-submission and post-approval control correspondences, we ask that questions should be submitted separately for each sub-discipline where possible. Example, drug substance, drug product, and manufacturing will not be on the same control correspondence. Each topic would be submitted as a different control correspondence. And this is for pre-submission and post-approval control correspondences. When we come to control correspondences pertaining to post-complete response letter, we ask that all quality-related questions should be submitted in a single control correspondence. Include a copy of the CRL, which is the complete response letter, and the reference specific deficiency in your control correspondence. Tips for a successful quality-related control correspondence. The first one would be concise and complete questions with appropriate submission information. Number 2, to resolve Q1, Q2 formulation issues before submitting the control correspondence. And also before sending, just verify if a new guidance has been published for the topic where the information and the inquiry can be found. We provided a link for the resources that may be needed. And also refer to the FDA guidance question and answers on quality-related control correspondence to determine if an answer has already been posted for what you may be asking in your control correspondence. Questions that cannot be answered in a quality-related control correspondence. we listed the questions that we cannot answer in control correspondence, and they are as follows. Acceptability of a specification, in-process control or study plan, acceptability of API overage in a final product, impurity clearance approach, adequacy of characterization studies, and proprietary information from the RLD or other applications. External inquiry versus a control correspondence. External inquiries is the agency's outreach program to provide clarification for sponsors or drug manufacturers. It is not mandated by any user fees, and therefore there's no time restriction on it. Some inquiries sent to the OPQ inquiries mailbox or other agencies' mailboxes may be eligible to be submitted as control correspondences. The FDA will notify the inquirer and request that the question be submitted as a controlled correspondence. Some examples of frequently submitted control correspondences to the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality. As you could tell from the previous slide with the graph, stability was one of the most popular ones, and this is the number one question that we do receive in control correspondences pertaining to stability. And it goes, how much stability data is needed for under submission? And the answer that we always give is provide 3 discrete batches and 6 months of accelerated data and 6 months of long-term data at the time of submission for all strengths of all dosage forms. The next one will be packaging of exhibit batches. Number one question there also would be, how many batches should be fully packaged? And the correct answer is 1 exhibit batch should be completely packaged in marketing presentation. The other 2 batches can be partially packaged in sufficient quantities to comply with 21 CFR 211-116. And the third one is in regards to API lots. How many API lots can be used for exhibit batches? The answer, a minimum of 2 lots of the drug substance should be used to manufacture the 3 primary batches of the drug product. However, for nasal aerosols and nasal sprays, use 3 different lots of drug substance. So in conclusion, I would like to emphasize on these 3 points. For controlled correspondences coming to the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality, please provide clear and concise information which is appropriate for your question. Separate the control correspondences for different OPQ sub-disciplines, except when it's for a post-CRL control correspondence, and also for, if you have a bioequivalence question, that should also be in a separate CC. For clarification of ambiguity should be submitted within 7 days of the response from the FDA. No new information should be added, and a response will be issued within 21 days. And these are some resources that will be very helpful for sending quality-related control correspondences. The control correspondences guidance related to generic drug development. We have a guidance also for question and answers for quality-controlled control correspondence. And we just have a form, which is a question and answers on quality-related control correspondences. So that's a good one to actually check your question to see, because we do provide questions and then the answers to see if your question has not already been answered. So now brings us to the challenge questions from this presentation. Question 1. Under GDUFA III, which of the following can be submitted as a controlled correspondence? Correspondence seeking regulatory and/or scientific advice after issuance of a complete response letter or tentative approval, and under approval, or D, all of the above. You want to take a shot at it? Yes. Okay. And then for question 2, complete study reports are not appropriate for a control correspondence. True or false? Anybody wants to try? Yes, it's true. Thank you very much for your attention.